Tonight, Joe Biden is going to give a speech where he discusses the danger of denying elections. And I want to say thank you, Mr. President. It is very respectable and honorable that you would come out 6 days before the midterms telling everyone not to deny election results. Because, of course, after November 8th, we are going to see the Republicans had won in a massive red wave. At least that's the latest projections. The Daily Mail, citing Real Clear Politics, is now saying the Republicans will win even New Hampshire. Decision Desk is saying Oz is likely going to win in Pennsylvania, giving Republicans 54 seats in the Senate. So, of course, with such a tremendous and crushing defeat, it's very important that Joe Biden come out and brace Democrats not to deny the election. Warn them now. Hey, it's very dangerous, right? Then, of course, when they lose, he can say, you remember what I said? We all agreed, right? Here's the reality. Joe Biden is likely going to come out and say, we face the apocalypse. Election denying Republicans must be stopped. Oh, they're so dangerous. Sure. Right now, we're being warned of diesel shortages, which in turn will mean food and gasoline shortages. We're being told inflation is through the roof. We're being told that we are facing an economic crisis. And now the Fed has just raised interest rates. And what do we get? Hillary Clinton coming out once again with utter nonsense. You've got insane conspiracy theories from the left, and you've got the unhinged of the Democratic Party saying, in reality, Republicans are actually going to lose. My favorite, from one liberal podcaster saying, Democrats are going to come out in force, and it's going to leave the news scratching their head. How did this happen? Now, of course, based on the data we're seeing, showing even Fetterman is about to lose, I got to say, most of us believe it's going to be a red wave for a variety of reasons. Even in New York, we saw this the other day. Zeldin is taking the lead over Hochul. This is New York. It's a Democrat state. Now, I know upstate New York does get fairly red. But even in New York, we're seeing polls shift, New York City, I should say, which is absolutely surprising. Despite all of that, I must warn you, or I should say, even with all of that showing promising outcomes, do not count all of your chickens before they hatch. I strongly advise everyone to go out and vote now. Tell your friends, get your friends and family together and go vote. Early voting is happening right now. And just because the media is coming out saying you got it in the bag does not mean it's true. In fact, I'd argue potentially means the opposite. They want to lull you into a false sense of security. And then sure enough, I would not be surprised if after November 8th, we're getting a bunch of news reports for whatever reason. The Democrats actually did better than anyone expected, that they're winning. I wouldn't be surprised by it. I'm not saying I think it's probable, but I'd be like, well, there you go. How many people right now seeing this news say, we won. I don't need to go vote. That's a mistake, a big mistake. Now, I do have to ask why Fetterman decided to debate Dr. Oz to show off the world that he was incapable of doing the job, I suppose. And now we are seeing the reality. Regular Americans, they're looking for core issues, crime, inflation, gas prices. But what do they get? Abortion? Seriously, that's what they're campaigning on in Florida and New York. Sure, I guess a lot of people are concerned about it. But most people, even women, they're looking at gas prices. They can't get their kids to school. So what is going on? Well, we'll see. The election is next Tuesday, less than a week away. So let's read the news, and I will give you some hopium to show you that as time goes on, it's starting to look more and more like it's not just going to be a red wave, not just a red tsunami, but a red great flood. And as I said before, Democrats, you best be building your ark now if you expect to survive this one. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com and become a member to support our work directly. Click that Join Us button and you'll get access to exclusive, uncensored, members-only shows from Timcast IRL, as well as the Cast Castle vlog and Tales from the Inverted World, and you will be directly funding all of our journalists. The most important thing. With your support at timcast.com, we keep our journalists gainfully employed, and we even have field reporters, so we're doing a lot of awesome stuff. The company is growing, so don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, and pick up at the timcast.com store Stand your ground. This is our new shirt. It's a rooster, and he's yelling, and he says, stand your ground. Why? Because the noble rooster will sacrifice his life, if even to buy his hens only a few seconds to run from a predator. When a predator approaches, the rooster will charge full speed, knowing he's not going to survive, but allows the hens to escape. Stand your ground. Be like the noble rooster. Pick up your shirt, flag, sweaters today over at timcast.com. Here's the story from the Daily Mail. Democrats brace for disaster. With 6 days until the midterms, poll projection shows Republicans taking 4 seats in the Senate and gaining 31 seats in the House. Yo! Wow, man. This close? Yeah, this is apocalyptic. They say the GOP had for months been forecasted to take back the House, but Democrats saw hope in enough Senate races to avoid a foregone conclusion of total defeat. As of Wednesday, however, that appears to have changed. Now, I want to point out in the past week or a few weeks, the projections showed Republicans getting only 53 seats. They thought Democrats would win New Hampshire. Now, based on the incoming data, nope. New Hampshire joins the ranks of a Republican gain, giving them 54 seats. Rising crime and concerns about the state of the economy, including inflation, appear to have won out as the top issue for likely voters. And may I remind you, with less than a week to the election, we're getting reports of diesel shortages. One distributor said East Coast cities may run dry for a few days, so brace for that. We're also now hearing that the Federal Reserve is hiking interest rates again as inflation rages on. It could not be worse. It's a perfect storm for Democrats. And I must add, a little bit of sweetness. White House brags about Social Security check increase caused by inflation. The White House tweeted Social Security is going to be jumping up thanks to Joe Biden. And then Twitter slapped a fact check saying, actually, it's because of Nixon and it's because inflation is really bad. So they deleted the tweet. Talk about a perfect storm. The Daily Mail says polls have projected a discontent among Americans with how Democrats have handled both. Though neither party has seemed to net a decisive majority on public trust to stop rising crime and fix the economy, the vast majority of surveys show voters favor the GOP to oversee them. And if only because Democrats are currently in charge. And so people are saying, you know what, I will take anything else. Republicans are now projected to pick up 4 seats in the Senate, according to Real Clear Politics, for a total of 54 GOP lawmakers to 46 Democrats, including the 2 independents that caucus with the left. So let's be real. If you want to get technical, it's only 44 Democrats. The poll aggregator's latest analysis shows Republicans flipping Senate seats in Nevada, New Hampshire, Georgia, and Arizona. All 4 states have Democratic incumbents being challenged by GOP candidates aligned with Donald Trump. Democrats are not forecasted to pick up any seats, according to the analysis. Pennsylvania, where Democrats were hoping to take over retiring GOP Senator Pat Toomey's seat, saw tides turn recently against progressive populist John Fetterman and in favor of Trump-backed celebrity physician Dr. Mehmet Oz. Fetterman, the state's lieutenant governor, had enjoyed a comfortable lead in the polls for months before his one and only debate against Oz last week showed the Democrat was still struggling with auditory processing and some speech issues caused by a stroke he suffered in May. And in Ohio, left-wing populist Tim Ryan had beat initial expectations to run a close race to replace outgoing GOP Senator Rob Portman. But that too seemed to fade as Republican J.D. Vance surged ahead on voters' economic concerns. On the House side, Republicans are forecasted to win 228 races compared to 174 projected Democratic victories. That means that even if the left wins all 33 toss-up races, they would still fall short of the 218 threshold needed for a ruling majority in Congress's lower chamber. I would like to let you all know these projections are based on the polls. But the polls were wrong in 2016, 2018, and in 2020. Why would the polls be correct today? Well, some argue the pollsters have updated based on their errors in 2016, 18, and 2020. But I'm going to go ahead and say I'm not buying it. You know why? Well, they got it wrong in 2016. You'd think they'd have fixed it then. They claimed to have, but in 2018, sure enough, they were wrong again. Still, Democrats did pick up some seats. They took the majority. They said, well, we were wrong about that, but we're going to be right again in 2020. And lo, they were wrong again. So come to me and tell me you think they're changing their polls and fixing their research. They ain't doing it. So if they're saying this, I'd be willing to bet it's worse than that. According to the Real Clear Politics projection, there are 13 lean Democrat seats. 33 are in toss-up territory. How much do you want to bet they go Republican? Why? In 2020, the whole projection map was skewed. Looking at like 538 and these other outlets, they were all wrong. New York Times, I think it was, said that all of this, here are the districts that are lean Democrat. The lean Democrat seats turned out to be Republican. And there were even several safe Democrat seats, like in Miami and in South Texas, that turned Republican. So let me say, first and foremost, to be very careful. Hey, man, the Democrats could win. Absolutely. They're coming out with all these projections, making you feel all good, warm and toasty inside. And then sure enough, come election day, they say, we can't count the votes. Mail-in votes are still coming in. And then sure enough, the Democrats win. For whatever reason. But I will say, based on what we've seen so far, there's a strong possibility, I don't know, that even some of these safe Democrat seats turn Republican. So they're saying that Ron DeSantis might actually win Dade County. This is an urban stronghold. This is Democrat. Bridget Fetisi on the Joe Rogan podcast says one of her family members, a staunch Democrat, voting DeSantis. Now that says a lot. So we will see. Here's what I must say to all of you. If this is true, now more than ever, do you need to go outside and go, charge, and then calmly walk up to the polling station, fill out your ballot with a smile on your face, and bid them farewell. If it is true that it's looking like the Republicans might win the majority, what you really need to see happen is a supermajority. Now's your chance. I'm not saying the Republican Party is good. I'm not a fan, to be honest. But there are so many MAGA Republicans, populists who are running, that if they get in, and they do win, you will actually see them get some commanding control in Congress. We may see subpoenas and inquiries. Right now, you've got these people begging for COVID amnesty. A simple majority in the Republican Party in Congress may be good. Maybe. A super majority or even a veto-proof majority. Now that would be tremendous. Now, as it pertains to Democrats in the Senate, I don't know how. I don't think it's actually possible to get a veto-proof majority. I could be wrong. I think that's like 66 seats, meaning Republicans would have to pick up like 12 more seats, which I don't think is even possible, to be completely honest. I'll tell you this. It'd be really incredible if Republicans were able to pick up 6 more seats. Now that would be an insane proposition. So I don't know. But let me tell you something. New York. This is really interesting. New York's Democrat. I don't know how many seats they got up in New York. Do they say right here? I don't know. Is New York appears to be up. They say it is. They're not every state is actually going to be up for re-election in terms of the Senate. But if they're saying that Zeldin is actually up in, this is battle for the Senate, is actually up in New York. We're talking about a statewide vote. What's to stop a Republican senator from winning in New York? And I'll stress this again. If the governor projection right now, take a look at this. It says congressional vote. Let me pull up the governor projection here, Real Clear Politics. They're saying right now they think New York is going Hochul. But we do have some data. Let me show you here. Robert C. Cahaley says new Trafalgar Group New York poll is turning out to be one to watch, with Zeldin holding a razor-thin lead in a statistical tie. I'm not so confident Zeldin can beat Hochul. I don't know. We'll see. You got to have faith. You got to have confidence, right? Okay. If in New York, a Republican has taken a razor-thin lead over Hochul, I'm telling you guys, if you live in New York, get out and vote. What if a Republican wins the governorship? What if a Republican wins the Senate? I know it sounds like a long shot. In the governor's races, they're saying Republicans are going to pick up five states. That's tremendous. What if in New York, y'all go out, vote, get your friends to vote, and you actually cause a massive shift? That would be absolutely tremendous. I'd love to see it. They go on to mention, with 6 days until the midterms, the Daily Mail says, the poll was taken between October 26th and 31st. This is a poll showing 51% of likely voters would pick a Republican on a generic congressional ballot, while 47% chose Democrats. In September, 50% of people said they'd vote Democrat, to 47% siding with the GOP. So here we have 538's generic ballot showing Republicans up 1.4 points. Apocalyptically bad for Democrats. I know it's wishful thinking, really. Over at Real Clear Politics, you've got 3-point advantage for Republicans. I know it's wishful thinking, but seriously, guys, New York is the place to be. If you are in New York right now, do not be defeatist. The news is telling you Republicans are going to win. This is your chance. Don't make it a simple victory. Make it an overwhelmingly crushing defeat for Democrats. Make them regret every psychotic policy they've ever pushed. Force them back into reality. With such a mind-bending defeat, they say, where did we go wrong? And the party implodes on itself. Win in New York. That means if you're in New York, talk to your neighbors. Call your friends in New York. Call your family and ask them if they're voting. Make sure they go out and vote. It's the best you can do. You have an opportunity right now. The polls are saying there is a chance. Think about how insane it would be if New York goes Republican. It'd be incredible. New Mexico, Colorado, Minnesota. What's the polling like in Minnesota? I don't know, but I'll tell you guys. We're looking at in Minnesota for governor, 0.43 up for the Democrats. Let's do the Senate projection. Maybe we need the Senate map, actually. Do we have Minnesota here? We don't. Minnesota doesn't have any Senate seats up. Okay, so that makes sense. And I don't, they're showing New York is up, but I don't see them actually in the polls right here for New York. Maybe there's just no real good Republican, chance, I suppose. I don't know. Oregon. Now, here's what's interesting. They're saying Oregon in the governor's projections might actually go Republican. They're projecting it. In Oregon, what do we got here? They don't got the polling data down here, but they're showing Oregon going Republican. Why not the Senate? Get it. Get out and vote. Take a look at this. Decision Desk HQ. This is fascinating. They're saying Dr. Oz has a 53.9% chance of winning the election to Fetterman's 46.1. Amazing. Here we go. The White House. You see, you wondering why it's happening? The fumbling, bumbling White House accidentally gloated about inflation. Newsweek reports a White House tweet about Social Security check increases is getting some grief and a label from Twitter. During a campaign stop Tuesday in Florida to denounce Republicans' economic intentions, President Joe Biden discussed Social Security and inflation in a gaffe-filled speech. And on my watch, for the first time in 10 years, seniors are getting an increase in their Social Security checks, Biden said. So checks are going to be up and Medicare payments are going to be down. The official White House account tweeted seniors are getting the biggest increase in their Social Security checks in 10 years through Biden's leadership. Uh-oh. Twitter then added context, adding information that people might want to know. The label reads that people will receive a large Social Security benefit increase due to the annual cost of living adjustment, which is based on the inflation rate. It also references how in 1972, Nixon signed into law automatic benefit adjustments. Uh-oh. Joe Biden's administration just accidentally told everyone that inflation is so bad, it's leading to a massive spike in Social Security. Whoops. So what did they do? They straight deleted the tweet. That's how bad it is. From our good friend Defiant L's on Twitter. USA Today on January 20th, 2022. President Joe Biden said Wednesday the 2022 midterm elections could easily be illegitimate if Congress does not pass voting rights legislation. And then 10 months later, Biden will address the threat of election deniers in a speech at 7 p.m. Wednesday from Washington's Union Station. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. The pre-election deniers are at it again. Now, I don't know what's going to happen come Election Day. We had no idea. The cult is right powerful, my friends. So get out and vote. But here's the news from NBC. Biden is expected to echo past warnings he has made about the threat posed by Republicans who have continued to spread false information about the validity of the 2020 election. Oh, I can't tell you. It's very frustrating to hear bad information from people about 2020. Now, there's real concerns. Time magazine ran their shadow campaign article. We all saw that. Concerns about ballot harvesting and things like that. Many of these things were not properly adjudicated. I agree with that. But man, you know, it really is frustrating to hear people say insane things. Look, there are insane things being said. People claiming that Trump would be inaugurated on March 3rd, the true election day, or that he was secretly the president. And yeah, okay, none of that turned out to be real. And sure enough, people believe the nonsense. So why then is Joe Biden coming out and then spewing nonsense himself? Why is he not calling out, I don't know, Hillary Clinton and every Democrat who denied the 2016 election? Funny how that works. From NBC, President Joe Biden is set to deliver remarks Wednesday night on the importance of protecting democracy and the threat posed by election deniers as part of his final pitch to voters heading into midterms next week. In the remarks, Biden is expected to echo past warnings he has made about the threat posed by those who spread false information about the validity of the 2020 election. Okay, this is actually great, sure. So after the Republicans win, here's what I expect. We can all take these clips of Joe Biden saying, these election deniers are bad, and then we'll just post them in reply to people denying the results of the midterms. How about that? President Biden has been speaking about democracy for the entire time he has been in office. We are not a democracy. We've never been a democracy. We are a constitutional republic. Get it right. The remarks will take place at 7 p.m. at Union Station, blah, blah, blah. He'll be making the speech from Capitol Hill. And why will he be making the speech on Capitol Hill? Because on January 6th, we saw violence geared towards subverting the democratic processes. So it's an appropriate place to make these remarks tonight. You see, that's their campaign. That's their pitch to you. I know gas prices are super high. They hit $5. They had a record. I know in California, they got nearly to $10. But don't think twice about any of that stuff. The real problem is MAGA. The real problem are the Republicans who want to lower your gas prices. From the Daily Mail. Deplorables 2.0. Hillary Clinton blames ill-informed Americans for rising GOP fortunes across U.S. and questions whether voters really understand what a midterm red wave would mean. Oh, I know what it'll mean. It'll mean there's going to be inquiries into the illegal and illicit activities of many different people. Well, I got my fingers crossed. I can tell you this. Democrats ain't going to investigate themselves. Many Republicans probably don't want to either, but I'll take my chances. How about that? Clinton made the remarks in an interview on Tuesday with MSNBC host Joy Reid, who asked the former Democratic presidential nominee, that was just wishful thinking on her part, never came to fruition. The former Democratic presidential nominee, whether she believed voters grasp what Republican majorities in the House or Senate would mean. The dismissive comments echoed her 2016 election gaffe when she called Trump supporters deplorables. Quote, I think that with all of the noise we've gotten this election season, I don't think people are really able to grasp that. But more importantly, I'm not sure they really understand the threats to their way of life. They may think that whoever's chairing a committee, kind of abstract. What? Clinton continued by arguing that Republicans are going to put Social Security and Medicare up for a vote. The claim refers to a proposal from Senator Rick Scott to sunset all federal legislation after 5 years, which would require Congress to pass laws again to keep them on the books. A brilliant proposal. Please support it. You see, so they tried to find a way, say, oh no. Sunset clauses would be incredible. It means that bad policy goes away and it has to be re-voted on. This is tremendous. So what do? Well, that means Social Security's gone. No, it just means you got to vote on it again. It actually means you'll be forced to talk to your constituents about why you will or won't be supporting it. A good idea. Biden and Democrats have hammered the plan, saying it would put Social Security in the chopping block, but Scott insisted he doesn't know one Republican in favor of cutting the retiree benefit programs. Clinton continued saying, wondering why every American's not up in arms. We've got lots of problems right now in our country. We need sensible people to come together to try and solve them. I just love the idea. This is a sunset all federal legislation after 5 years. Yeah. That means things like the NFA, doesn't it? Ooh, I'm really, really excited for the prospect of that. The government shouldn't just pass laws and then they just last forever. That doesn't make sense. If you want to change the Constitution, amend it. Our statutory laws should be updated and voted on. Every 5 years, they should sunset. That's a brilliant idea. Clinton, of course, is losing her mind. Oh, here's why. House GOP asks Elon Musk to hand over info on Twitter censorship of Hunter Biden laptop. Bum, bum, bum. Oh, it's coming, and I want to see it. Right now, Republicans are hoping that with Elon Musk running Twitter, he may actually help them out and give them data that Twitter was withholding. Elon better do it quick before he becomes complicit or an accomplice. Right now, Elon Musk is the sole head of Twitter, and he can go through all this and say, we're going to release it to you. But if he sits on it or hides it, now he's just part of that same machine. This is where we're at now. Some actions show promising futures for the Republicans, not all of them. But if the Republicans win, we may actually see subpoenas. We may actually see actual committee hearings. I'm down. If it's all we get, I'll take it. Now, I would prefer some real accountability, but this is the close we can get so far. Take what you can get and keep forcing the conversation in the right direction. The Examiner reports a top House Republican investigator is calling on Twitter owner Elon Musk to hand over any and all company records related to the social media giant's decision to suppress stories about the Hunter Biden laptop ahead of the 2020 election. Quote, committee Republicans are investigating the Biden family's pattern of influence peddling to enrich themselves and President Biden's involvement in these schemes, Comer wrote to Musk on Friday. As part of this investigation, committee Republicans are reviewing the role big tech, including Twitter, played in supporting the Biden campaign in 2020 by suppressing certain stories implicating the Bidens. Hey, Republican Party, don't forget the FBI and DHS's involvement in this. You might want to get them to answer for it as well. From Fox News, Washington Post column calls for Biden and Harris to drop out of the 2024 race. Unfitness has been demonstrated. Sure. What about Fetterman? Yeah, Fetterman should drop out too, right? What are you saying here? What unfitness? George Will called on Biden and Harris to not seek the White House in 2024 in a scathing piece Wednesday, calling them unfit for office. Will, a conservative known for his staunch opposition to Donald Trump, was unsparing, writing that Biden is not just past his prime, but even adequacy is in his... Wow. Even adequacy is in his past. Woo. Of Harris, he wrote her style betrays a self-satisfied exaggeration of her aptitudes. Lacking natural talent, she needs to prepare, but evidently doesn't. Will voted for Biden in 2020, the first time he has ever supported a Democrat, but he wants a new candidate. In 2024, the Republican Party might present the nation with a presidential nominee whose unfitness has been demonstrated. After next Tuesday's sobering election results, Democrats should resolve not to insult and imperil the nation by doing likewise. Woo! Spicy. Will wrote Biden's recent falsehood that he had signed a student debt forgiveness law was an alarming reminder that he shouldn't seek another term. Rather, the handout was done through executive action and not a bill signed into law that passed by a vote. By a vote or two, he said. As Biden erroneously claimed. How about he lied? Biden was not merely again embellishing his achievements, Will wrote. This is not just another of his verbal fender benders. There is no less than dismaying explanation for his complete confusion. What vote? Who voted? Quote, it is frightening that Biden does not know or remember what he recently did regarding an immensely important policy. He must be presumed susceptible to future episodes of similar bewilderment. He should leave the public stage on January 20th, 2025. I think sooner. Did you guys see the photo of him holding his hand up? Many people pointed to open scars on his hand. They look like IV marks. So what IV treatment has Joe Biden been getting? I'd imagine he's been getting vitamin drips. I don't know for sure. Medication of some sort. I'd imagine he's probably getting some like rejuvenation therapies. Maybe Joe Biden hit up our good friend Joe Rogan, asked him about NAD+, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. They say that this potent formula rejuvenates you, triggers cellular regeneration. Maybe he's getting a extended state psilocybin trip to remove the, what is it called, amyloid plaque? I don't know. Ian was talking about it last night on IRL. I don't know what he's getting. Maybe it's just saline and vitamins. Who knows? Maybe he's not even getting an IV. I don't know. But the dude clearly is unfit. So what comes next? You asked for it. Trump 2024 campaign prepares for post-midterms launch. And here we go. Ooh, I'm excited for this. Mr. President, former President Trump, be honored to have you on Timcast IRL. We'll bring the mobile studio to you and have an amazing conversation about your plans should you announce 2024. You'll love to see it. Donald Trump has said some alarming things about jailing journalists I don't like. I'm not a fan, and I want to challenge him on it. I am not a fan of a lot of things Donald Trump did. I am not a fan of the people he hired. But I certainly think a bull in the ivory tower is better than the establishment batten down the hatches. So I say, Donald Trump, sure, 2024. We'll see. You know, I do have my fears. When Donald Trump joked about jailing journalists to force them to out their sources, you know, look, man, I don't care for these woke fake journalists. But I tell you this, if I had a source who released information, maybe there's something that's damning to the Clintons. And Donald Trump says we need to know who that source is so we can deal with this. And I'm not going to jeopardize people who risk their lives to get this information out. Not going to happen. If Trump came to me and said, we're going to lock you up until you tell us, I say, you're wasting your time. Tell me where to stand, because I'll never give you my sources. Give you a better example. Trump wants to know who is leaking to the press, who leaked the Roe v. Wade stuff from the Supreme Court. I get it. We should know. There should be an investigation. The journalists, you leave them out of it. Because think about what this means. James O'Keefe, Project Veritas, he has sources. Imagine the government went to him and said, we are going to jail you, James, until you tell us who your source is. I assure you, James O'Keefe will say, fine, but I'll never tell you. And they'll lock him up. And eventually they'll be forced to release him because the purpose of contempt in this can only be applied under the pretext you will eventually give in. But I assure you, James, nor I, and many others, we would never betray our sources. It's never going to happen. So, there are worrying things Donald Trump has said, for sure. I'm sorry. I'll take it over whatever the Democrats have to offer. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 8 p.m. tonight over at youtube.com/TimcastIRL. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.